Raymond Santana, yo. Like, yo, this is legendary, yo. And I appreciate you coming in, bro. Oh, man. How you doing, man?
Let me see. Uh-oh. We good?
Yeah,
I know it's going in and out.
Yeah, you a little
All right,
laggy
yeah.
by looking on me.
I'm a little laggy on my side. Oh man, we gotta get that Wi-Fi up.
Yeah. Yo, I got the
You look
infamous
good on
famous
my.
Central Park 5. Yo, how you doing, sir? How you doing?
Hold on. Let me make sure we good. All right, we connected. You still there,
Yeah,
right? We good, right? All right. What's going on, brother? I know we've been trying to get this, I'm good, man. I know we've been trying to get this done, you know.
But I've been trying to get you for like a year or two, bro. Story, man. You guys had an ill story. I think after the Netflix, when the Netflix thing came in,
Yeah.
story went up to the top, like everybody knew.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, man. You know, how's everything right now? How's everything? How's it?
I mean, we live in life, at the end of the day, it's like when Netflix, it puts you on that platform and everybody's looking at you, and you get that spotlight for a little while, but after a while, that spotlight dies down and it goes and everybody focuses direction, the attention, different direction. And you just left with you know what I'm saying? And just still trying to struggle and pick up the pieces and still try to live life as best as you can. So it's a daily process, but we blessed, man. We alive, we here, we get to be active, we get to be, productive. So, it is what it is, man. We here, man. We here.
Quick question, like, even till this day, there's like, your story was that, you guys got named, you guys didn't do, right? And that, like to me, the justice in the system, and even right now, there was another person who went to for a very long time who just who I think he's connected with Wu-Tang. And I just a lot of people that's of course a lot of but like for you, for instance, Joseph Sharp, he went to prison and they didn't do fine. So
yeah.
I want to see your insight. How you feel about justice? And what
I didn't hear the last part.
What can we
What
do?
was the last part?
What can we do? Like for what I'm saying, for us, right now, do that justice.
No, for me, it's about spreading the awareness of the criminal justice system because a lot of people. I mean, now we have YouTube and everybody speaking of all these incidents that we see keep occurring. But the system has been operating, the way that it has for a long time.
Right.
And we're behind. We're behind the 8 ball when it comes to the system, and so I tell people that they have to get involved. And it's first off, I tell people that my idea is not bigger than yours. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to bring these ideas to the table and we got to collaborate on these ideas because it has to be a joint effort. The system has been moving at a fast pace for a long time and it has been operating where it has been taking our youth and putting them in situations just based on budgets. Right. And so I tell people that first, we got to understand that the system exists and why it exists. And it exists because of these billion-dollar budgets. Right. When you can take a town, like let's say for New York State, for instance, you can take New York State where people in upstate New York, right, they were on public assistance, right? They did, and they were, there was no money coming into the town until a prison came there. And when the prison came there and it brought opportunities and jobs, and it became a big business in New York State, which is all operated under the government, right, under New York State government. And so this system, when you look at the money that's poured into the system, right? You look at Division for Youth, right? Where we wound up going after we were convicted, and in Division for Youth, it can cost up to $200,000 to house a juvenile. You know what I'm saying? Where it can one juvenile in the juvenile justice system, whereas in an adult prison, it can cost up to $40,000, to house an inmate. And so we got to look at the money, right, that's poured into that system, and even the systems that operate around it, right? Because you have Department of Corrections, you have probation, you have parole, you have police department, all these agencies that are directly in contact with the Department of Corrections, right, with mass incarceration, are all billion-dollar budgets. And so everybody's making this money on the backs of Black and Latino, inmates, kids, people, whatever, or minorities, period, right? We have become cattle. And so for me, you hear, there's protesting, there's marching, there's bringing awareness. There's a lot of ideas that come to the table. And so for me, I had to think strategically and say, well, what do we do as the exonerated five, right? Because we were juveniles, we were 14 and 15 years old. Corey was 16 when this happened. And the system railroaded us and didn't care, right? We was given a social death. We weren't supposed to survive this 5 to 10 year prison sentence. And so now when you're able to have a platform and you're able to speak, we have to speak from this perspective of juvenile justice because we were kids, right? And so we had to follow the money. And for me, it became about talking to juveniles and talking to the youth and talking to college kids and people at university. And for me, my ideology was just about occupying spaces. And so it became a call, occupying all spaces. It became a call where I asked our people from our community, if you want those positions, if you want to be chief of police, if you want to be the mayor, if you want to be the district attorney, go for those positions. Go for those positions. Those positions, we have the numbers and we have the strength when we get into those positions. And it's about occupying those positions and then bringing people into them who look like us.
But you know
what I'm saying?
Little devil advocate, but what if those guys turn out to be the other side? Because
it happens. It happens. But the thing is that my thing is, I'm not going to send one person to occupy that position. I'm going to send 50. I'm going to send 100 people because those are the odds. We know that everybody who look like us hate us, right? We know that for a fact. And so, my thing is just about putting a message out there and telling these young kids that we need y'all to be active. We need you to get involved. And to an extent, they have shown up. The youth, this young generation, they have stood tall, and they have stood and looked in the face of the oppressor and said, nah, we not having it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what it's about. It's about seeing, people now who heard about this story 20-something years ago and tell me I'm a lawyer now because of your case. You know what I'm saying? I'm a district attorney because of your case. I'm a police officer because of your case. And so that became the strategy that we had to tell these kids, do not be afraid. If you want that position, go and take it, go seek it. And it's crazy because now I start to see the fruits of some of that labor now, right? You see that in Chicago, they just passed a law where, for the juveniles, when it comes to police interrogations, you know what I'm saying? And one of the people who was in front of that was the district attorney in Chicago, you know what I'm saying? Kim Fox, who is a good friend of mine, and who I can say this case influenced her to be like, you know what? Nah, we got to do the right thing here. So that's what we ask, that's what we ask our youth. We ask them to get more involved and be strategic. And it doesn't matter your talent. We don't expect everybody to be on the front line marching. You know what I'm saying? We got hip hop artists. We got people who draw murals, who do poetry, who sing. Whatever your strength is, you bring that to the table and you amplify that and let the world see it.
You're right, man. That's real talk. That's real talk. And I want to go a little bit kind of back with this, right?
Definitely.
You was locked up with any Asians? Was there any?
With who?
Any Asian people over there? Like people who look like me?
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. In 1989, I was in Spofford Juvenile, Center, and there was Asians there, from you know, from the Asian gangs, you know what I'm saying, who was locked up. But yo, they were cool. You know, it was always love.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said you went in when you was 15, right?
14.
Damn, that's crazy. And you was from Harlem? You was from Harlem or in the Bronx?
Well, what happened was I was born in Harlem. I had moved to the Bronx for a period of time, and then I wound up moving back to Harlem. And so when I moved back to Harlem, this is when this happened. And I was 14 years old at the time. So I get my toughness from the Bronx, but I get my hustle from Harlem.
Right. And, you know, this is from soul, right? And you know, I'm a big like sneaker, right? I want to ask, like, what was you rocking before all this bullshit happened? Like, do you remember what kind of sneakers?
No, I was definitely a sneakerhead back then. There was a lot of Reeboks, because Reeboks was popular. I didn't really do the shell toes too much, but there was Delta Force, there was Court Forces, by Nikes, that I wore a lot. And when I was 14, yeah, that was basically. I mean, I can show you photos. I can't go off names of the technical names of the sneakers back then. It wasn't until I came back later on I got more into sneakers.
Like what? What was you into?
Oh, I mean, downstairs I got, there's a bunch of Jordans.
Right.
Oh no, I mean, if we had time, I would show it to you.
Like I fucking appreciate you, bro. Like, you guys got like some powerful message right now, and all this owner and all this lot of shit and this shit goes on, still going on with the minorities, and especially with and I can't even lie, especially with the blacks and Hispanics. Like I feel like there's a lot of injustice, and like you said, we gotta tap in with hip hop is real.
What's going on, guys?
How you doing?
What up?
Raymond Santana, what's up, brother? Peace.
What's going on, brother? How are you?
Everything is well. I want to salute my brother Tiger from the soul, telling me to come through, join this conversation, man. And you definitely, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We appreciate, the struggle that you went through, your story and everything. Helped uplift a lot of people and bring, what I'm saying, knowledge and information, the things that people really need to be aware of, man. And y'all went through some of the realest stuff ever. So just, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Definitely.
And the knowledge, I was talking to Santana about how like there's a lot of injustice right now, especially Black and Hispanic. I think just saying, you gotta tap like the college kids and who's gonna turn out to be the next and the police chiefs and stuff like that. So how do you think about it? But your name is Knowledge the God, so you gotta
knowledge the God. Like the conversation we have always behind the scenes is like, at the end of the day, everything starts at home. I talked to my brother today, and just like, a lot of things, you could control what you do with your kids, with your family, how you upraise them, but you can't always control what other people do with theirs and how things happen. And, anybody is subject to any type of thing. Anything can happen to anybody, you know what I'm saying? So really, you start with home first, and then you just try to influence the community through your actions. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You can't really know people's heart, you know what I'm saying, until they're put in a situation to show you who they are. So a lot of times, I think that best advice is just to be the best you, the best version of you, and, help raise your kids the best way so that they can, treat the next people, and then you do your best to put them in position to be in some level of power or some level of influence so that they can make the change that needs to happen. And I think that's the most powerful way to get it done.
100%. I mean, for us, we got tired of dealing with politicians who give you false narratives and false hope and false stories. And so when we got the platform, it was about how do we engage the youth, because it became about playing chess and not checkers. And it was about being strategic and planting them seeds and then watching them grow. You know what I'm saying? And even though I might not be here to benefit off that fruit, but my child might be here for that. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what it was. It was about doing that, putting it out there. And we get it. Everybody's not going to be on the front line to protest. Everybody's not going to march. But whatever your strength is, we ask that you bring it to the table because it's all hands on deck. You know what I'm saying? It has to come. Sorry about that. We have to empower our youth so that they won't be afraid of tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Because and the reason why it was good for us to go to universities and the colleges, and we still do that to this day, is because the criminal justice system wants you at a young age because then it can keep you for a longer time period, and it's a longer budget. You know what I'm saying? You become part of that budget, and that money is allocated to that system based on your back. And so we need to wake up as many kids as we can because the system wants you to occupy a jail cell and not a college dorm.
Nah, that's real talk, man. That's real talk. And I just recently uploaded a video with Hocus 4/5, and he was talking about how like there's a new law in the city where like now, you know what I'm saying, with the gangs, they could lock certain people up. Like even if your gang does something and you're on parole, and just because you're a part of that gang, they could snatch you back out the street, whether you committed a crime or not. So there's just all new things that's always being implemented and added to keep us going back and forth to jail. You know what I'm saying? And that right there is just another way to show like, yo, you don't even gotta be doing nothing. You could even be on a positive thing and you just on parole or whatever, but just because of your affiliation now, you know what I'm saying? And these are the guys you grow up in the neighborhood. These are your brothers, your cousins. So it's like hard to get out of that cycle. And they're making it tougher and tougher.
No, definitely. And those are dirty tactics that they use when the system is low on occupants and it needs people to occupy those spaces. And that's, that's why you have in New York City, you have quality of life crimes, right? Where if they catch you peeing in, let's say in the hallway, they're supposed to give you a summons, right? But it becomes a misdemeanor, knowing that some people can't post that $500 or $1,000 bail. And automatically you become part of that statistic, you become part of that budget. It was to fluff up numbers. We know that stop and frisk was a tactic that was used by the police to fluff up numbers to get $1 billion budget. Because once you see stop and frisk and it's implemented, after that, their budgets start to be $2-3 billion. Now, currently, the police department in New York City has a budget of $6.7 billion. You know what I'm saying? And this is why people are calling to defund the police, because those funds was allocated because Mayor Bloomberg, who was in office at the time, he wanted to have a small army. He wanted to instill fear into the people based on using terrorism. You know what I'm saying? But it was a way to give them big ass budgets when now they operate at a $6.7 billion budget. How do you stop that when somebody has empowered that agency to be that strong? You see what I'm saying? And so this isn't, and that's why I stated the point earlier that when you look at all the agencies that are attached to the criminal justice system, they're all in the billions of dollars worth when it comes to the budget. So this is a fight that has been going on for a long time, and these cats is playing chess for real. And so we have to play chess. And that, so my suggestion was just one suggestion of trying to be ahead of the curve. You know what I'm saying? But I tell our young activists that we can't get caught in the bickering amongst each other. We can't get caught up in saying my idea is bigger than yours. No, we have to partner up. You got to utilize your idea. I got to utilize my idea. Ty got to utilize his idea, and let's go. And we just got to be all in cahoots with each other. You know what I'm saying? But as long as they keep us separated as far as, and not let it be unified as a force, they're going to always continue to win.
I see a question here, but I wanted to ask you a quick personal question is like, do you think like, what you've been through and then seeing what's been going out throughout the years and still the injustice and everything, do you think like there's going to be like an eventual change in the system, or you know what I'm saying? Do you feel like it's always going to be business as usual because we live in America, which is a capitalist society, and we know the prison system is one of the biggest slave industrial type of systems out there, where they get you working for damn near pennies on the dollar, you know what I'm saying, to fund all of this stuff.
I think that the system is always going to be business as usual. It's up to us to disrupt and stop the flow of the system.
Got
And
it.
we do that by stopping people from going into the system. And that we do that by awareness, by waking them up, let them know what's out there and what's the pitfalls that's ready for them, to become part of a budget. You know what I'm saying? I think it starts there. But it's we have to put the work in at the end of the day, because for me, and this is what I was stating earlier, like, I have met people who, because of my case, became lawyers and wanted to fight against the system. You know what I'm saying? Kim Fox in Chicago, she's a prosecutor. I could DM her, and me and her had conversations before, and to see her now doing the work where they're changing some laws where, police can't interrogate juveniles like, how they did in the past is changing. We have to take that stance to other states. And when we got to let them know that, we have to make changes when it comes to juvenile law, because juveniles, our young is our precious commodity. That's the cream. If you steal our young, you steal our nation, you steal our livelihood, you steal our future. So we're battling against a system that wants to take our kids. And that's whether it's prison, whether it's probation, parole, whether it's social services. They want to take our kids and just occupy them in some type of space because it becomes some type of budget for that agency. And so we got to dismantle all that shit. And I think that we do that by making people aware of what's going on.
Definitely.
And you look at that question in the bottom. Was that?
Oh, well, Netflix. I mean, when it came to Ava, for us it was 100% because Ava was real hands-on, and she was an open book. So for me, I can't speak for everybody else. I could just speak for Raymond. I was able to read scripts. I was able to give dialogue. I sat in editing sessions. I sat, me and Ava, we had conversations about certain scenes in the movie, and she was really open to listening and change some things. So it was accurate for me, you know what I'm saying? Because she let us, like Corey was on set whenever he wanted to be on set, giving his input, especially when you shot his episode. So she was real transparent. And a funny story is me and her had a conversation one night, and I told her, I said, I get it. This is Hollywood. And Ava barked on me. She was like, no, brother, this ain't Hollywood. I'm here to tell the story. I'm here to tell the true narrative. We're not going to play that game. And I was like, you right.
What was it though? What was it like? What was being portrayed where you was like, come on, now they just fluffing it or adding extra? If you remember the scene or that, and then what did you change it to be?
Well, what happened was it was some of Corey's episode, and I just felt like before you put that information out there, you need to really sit down with that brother and tell him what's being filmed and how it's going to look and how it's going to be portrayed, because he needs to be 100% on board with it. And if he's not on board with it, then we not on board with it. You know what I'm saying? So it was conversations like that. And, as it goes on, it becomes, well, this is Hollywood. I get it. Y'all want to make things look dramatic. And she was like, no. We're not going to play that. And so it was scenes like that, that sensitive scenes that you really got to be careful with.
And right, not to cut y'all off, but right now, like I said, this is from the soul, right? Everything is from the soul. I see Knowledge wearing the 23 Jordan, and I wanted to, give
Ooh,
and this.
Yeah.
Those are.
Oh, look at the corduroy, made in corduroy, and the summertime. I and I got you, Santana. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm shoe. Like, yo, man, I really
I'm jealous.
Those are hot, man.
Some fire.
Now you're gonna make me want to go downstairs. You're gonna make me go downstairs and want to show you some of my sneakers.
Yo, this, you know what I'm saying? And like, I really think it matches you. It's a subtle, dope, like clean shoe, summertime. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to, I mean, I don't want you to have all these colorful, crazy colors when you know what I'm saying? So, and I'll send this to Knowledge. He's in the ATL now, and he's coming by this weekend, or I'll just mail it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Wherever
no,
you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
grab them for him while I'm out there. When I come back, I'll link up with you, Raymond. You know what I'm saying? I'll give them to you in person.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yo,
Knowledge, don't
yo,
wear my
I,
joints, man.
no,
Knowledge,
no,
don't
no,
wear my
no,
joints, man.
no. I gotta ask you though, right? Like, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
no
lie,
doubt.
man. Like watching the story, just being home, watching all the episodes, like that shit, like it really touched me. It was like really like, damn, this is the reality that these guys had to go through.
Yeah,
How did you
yeah.
like? How did you like come home, right? You know what I'm saying? And then not be bitter and not hate these people for taking all the time. I see you look happy. I see you got your kids, you chilling, you living your life. But for all that time taken
Yeah.
away and dealing with all that, how did you not lose your mind? You know what I'm saying? And come home and still have the strength to just be like, you know what? I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna
Hmm.
forgive him. I'm gonna forgive this and not, you know what I'm saying? Want to blow the whole shit up
Yeah.
and go crazy.
I know for me, we have our days, you know what I'm saying? And everybody, out of the five of us, some days, is more rough than others for some of us. And but for me, once I figured out what happened to us, why it happened to us, meaning mass incarceration and all that stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, you're upset. You're mad because, you guys, I mean, not only did they take 7 years of my life for the jogger case, but I wound up getting parole violations, right? And
What?
a person, yeah, I had wound up getting a parole violation, a curfew violation, and they gave me 2.5 years for it, right?
Oh.
So there was never no breaks for us. And so for me, it was like, what do I do? How do you win against a system that is so big and is massive, you know what I'm saying? And it ran over you once, it's trying to run over you again, right? Because what people fail to realize is that there's negative articles that are written about us all the way up to 2015. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it was just about how do what does it take, for me to not be bitter, or how do I heal? And it was about fighting. It was about fighting against the system. It was about going toe to toe with the system, and then saying, you know what? It took them 2.5 years to charge us, try us, and convict us and send us to prison. But now you're dealing with 5 grown men, and you got to deal with us for the rest of your life. And I'm talking to those who had a hand in this, right? And so it was about letting them see that you didn't break me. We're still happy. And every chance I get, I'm gonna make sure that you never forget who we are. You know what I'm saying? So that's why there's an Ava, that's why there's a Netflix. That's why there's a doc, the Central Park Five. That's why there's a book called the Central Park Five, Chronicles of a City Wilding. This is why I created the clothing line. Because everything is geared, I took my anger and my bitterness and I channeled it into going against these people who didn't want to succeed. You know what I'm saying? And that became my motivation, because I knew who my enemy was. And as long as I know who my enemy is, I could just swing and pound out on them all day. And that's what I did. Because for me, it was about Linda Fairstein, Elizabeth Lederer, all those detectives. I wanted them every morning when they wake up or when they go on a social media platform, they had to see our face somewhere, somehow. You know what I'm saying? And that became the motivation. Know who your enemy is, and then do what you got to do.
Attack.
Did you ever get it, or did you ever get a chance to get apologies from them in person, or any of those people who were like directly involved, or were they just like, whatever, still trying to hold on and still fight, acting like y'all was still wrong and things like that?
Yeah, 100%. What people don't know is that there's an 11-year civil suit, right, before the city settled out with us. This was a no-pay case. They wasn't trying to pay us. We was asking to go to trial, but they just wanted to drag us. And so within this 11 years, we conducted over 100 depositions. So we got to get prosecutors and police officers in these rooms, and they had to go under oath. And they all said that we were still guilty. They all said that it was good old-fashioned police work and that they did nothing wrong. Yeah, exactly. This is in depositions.
That's
This isn't.
crazy.
This
So they
is
lied under
this is
oath and
crazy.
all that. They didn't even care.
All
Fuck.
listen, all
No
that. I
respect
mean,
for what the
it's. I
justice
mean,
they so-called stand on.
Wow.
exactly. No respect. I mean, one prosecutor was like, "Well, it became a hot potato," and she was like, "I didn't do nothing. I had no parts of this." You got to talk to the other prosecutor. I just passed information. And we was like, no, you was the head lead investigator. You the one who ran everything from the top. We even found out that she was leaking information to the press.
That's
And that's
crazy.
how come you got those outrageous headlines in 1989. Wilden, urban terrorist, super predator. Super predator was the term that was given to us as 14 and 15-year-old kids, which later on became the term that was used for the 1994 mass incarceration bill, the Bill Clinton stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we were the poster children for all that shit.
That's crazy.
We were the example. Every time somebody wanted to pass a law, you see Central Park 5, look what they doing. That was it. 44 states changed juvenile laws behind this case, but they never changed them back.
That's crazy. That's even crazier now. And it's like they make a big wrong, but nobody wants to right the wrong. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's an even bigger injustice even to this day.
No doubt. Right now in New York State, we got a bill. We're waiting for we got some bills up there that we waiting to pass. Where police can't use those tactics, on juveniles, right? And so the thing is that to know that police can actually sit there and lie to you. There's a Reed technique that says there's 6 steps to get a person to confess. These are tactics that are used by the police that's legit. So I can lock you up. If I was an officer, I can lock you up and say, I know you did it because I got your fingerprints on the weapon. And even though you're innocent, you under so much pressure, right? And all I got to do is make sure that you don't eat, make sure that you don't sleep, keep your ass up, keep the stress on you, and eventually you will crack. These are tactics that's used on terrorists. You know what I'm saying? No sleep, no food, amounts of pressure, good cop, bad cop. In Corey's wise, in Corey, what was that?
Like chain on the wall, they lock you up with the chain or the hold 2 nights. They don't even interrogate you. They just up for 2 days like this, telling me to give me information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I left before the scene, and then they locked me up for 2 days like this. For 2 days, no food, no nothing. So what the hell?
No food, no nothing.
Nothing.
And it happens all the time. I mean, and even if you get past that and you go through the bookings and you got to go to court, for those who've been through the system, we know what bullpen therapy is. You know what I'm saying? Where you going to court so long, you sitting there so much, you just be like, I just want to take some time to get out of here. Like, these are tactics that are used that shouldn't be used.
Right.
It's crazy. But it's because people don't know. It happens all the time until you experience it. So for a cop to sit there and lie to you and tell you that, we have your evidence, and you're sitting there like, how did you get that? But these are police, right? It's easy to manipulate a 14-year-old kid when he's been under extreme amounts of pressure and stress, and he just wants it to stop. The biggest thing for us was that even though we lied in our statements, right? We was waiting for them to come back and be like, y'all some lying motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Because our stories just didn't make sense. In Corey Wise's instance, he made 3 different statements. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what story do you believe? And so that was the biggest thing that we had feared, that they were going to come back and be like, yo, y'all lied to us. None of this shit match. It doesn't match. The DNA evidence doesn't match. This is where you took hair samples, you took blood, you took footprints, you took handprints, you took all of our clothes, and you sent it to the lab to test against the semen that was found at the scene of the crime, right? And none of it matched. And then we find out in the deposition that you tested over 40 kids and nobody had a match. So where was the situation where you said, wait a minute, hold on, something wrong here?
Yeah.
This thing just don't add up. You know what I'm saying? We in our statements, we have the rape taking place by the reservoir. And if you look at the reservoir in Central Park and where the actual crime occurred, is the length of 4 football fields. You see what I'm saying? We couldn't have been there. We never went through there. And then when you look at the actual person who committed this crime, right, Mateus Reyes, he was known as the East Side rapist, the East Side slasher. He committed 4 rapes and a murder that summer, right? He tried to rape a woman two days before the jogger in Central Park, right? And And the reason how he gets caught is that he assaults a woman inside her apartment, and on the way, you know, because all his victims they were bound and gagged like this. So all their injuries were sustained in the eyes and the head so that they couldn't ID him or he tried to kill him, right? So this woman, after he assaulted her, he was looking for some rope to tie her up. She ran out the house, ran out the apartment, ran downstairs, and she told the doorman. And the doorman, along with some construction workers, caught this dude leaving the scene of the crime. That's how he got caught, not by the police. Even though they was looking for him, because the woman that he had tried to rape in the park 2 days before had ID'd him because he had stitches on his chin.
Yeah, I heard about that.
You see what I'm saying? So their good old-fashioned police work wasn't even working. They didn't know what the hell was going on.
So in your opinion, is this still going on right now? Even with all of this shit, they still planting evidence, they still doing shit. Because I'm watching shit that's now live on Instagram where they just beat some dude up just for sitting down and he's screaming for help, y'all choking me, y'all trying to kill me. He's sitting here looking clueless, and it's like without a camera, they could have made up whatever story they wanted on homie. You know what I'm saying? So in your opinion, is this still just as bad?
Yeah, because now we have actual footage of police killing people, doing wrong, kicking people in the head, doing all type of shit, and they're not getting reprimanded the way they're supposed to. Like, how is that you have a video where somebody, I stated this before, you know, on another interview, like, we have done everything when it came. We done put our hands up. We done said, don't shoot. We done said we can't breathe. We done said, I ain't do nothing wrong. We try to run. You know, we done sat there and said we innocent. What the fuck does it take? Like, we done try to do everything to show these dudes that we're not the violent people that you paint us out to be. But somebody has to be on the bottom, and they picked us to be on the bottom, and we're fighting to get back on the top. And it's a hell of a battle. It's a hell of a climb. You know what I'm saying? But we gotta be consistent and persistent in what we want, and in the pursuit of saving lives.
You want to it says right the rest of
yeah, you know, I know who that is too. BK, what up? And the funny thing is that I was just when I told you they kept calling, that was Kevin calling me. You know, cause Kev, he's coming to Atlanta, so you know we Yusuf comes to the house all the time. We hang out, so we brothers at the end of the day. This is an unfortunate situation that it linked us together forever. And no matter what, you know, when, you know, I want my tombstone when I die to say, you know, father, husband, loving man, activist. But what people are going to really associate me with is the exonerated five. And that's just the honest truth that we cannot escape. I mean, we were fortunate that Oprah gave us the term the exonerated five, because now we would still be known as the Central Park Five.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're brothers to this day. And we go through our things like brothers, and we argue like brothers, but at the end of the day, those are my bros, and I love them to death. You know what I'm saying? And I'm always going to be there for them, and vice versa.
How important was the fact that it was so publicized for y'all? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it wasn't so public, do y'all think y'all would have ever been able to get y'all justice?
It would have been definitely difficult, because it's crazy, because the same, you know, the same outlets that they used to convict us became kind of like the same outlets that became for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we understood that as I got older, they put us on this platform. Like, once you put that video, you know, that so-called confession on TV, and you see Raymond describing the scene of the crime, it's like it automatically hook, line, and sinker. You guilty, you must have did it. You know, nobody knows the technical stuff behind it, right? If you look at Corey's videotape statement, she gives him a photo of the jogger, right, with the injuries. And when he looks at that photo is when he starts to change his story. And he even says it, oh, yeah, somebody picked up a rock and hit her right here. Because you gave him the photo, you tampered with his testimony. That should have been inadmissible. You know what I'm saying? You led him on. It's like when a police officer tells me, he says, you know, Raymond, I'm at a state of, I'm broken down. And at this point, I'm just lying because I just want the pressure to stop. And he says, you know, this woman lost a lot of blood. We don't know if she's going to survive. She had all these injuries. You know what I'm saying? Something had to be used, Raymond. A rock, a brick, a pipe, something. But what he's doing is that he's giving me outlets. He's giving me options to choose from, right? And my 14-year-old butt says, well, it was a brick. And he says, well, who had the brick? And I say this kid by the name of Stephen Lopez, right? Who I didn't even know Stephen Lopez. This is just a name that's given to me by the detectives. And so the crazy shit is that I say it's a brick that's being used. And during trial, the brick appears in the courtroom. It's put on the table as the weapon that's used in the crime with no blood on it. The brick makes makes the front page of the Newsday the next day as the weapon that's used, and there was no blood on it. You can't make this shit up. So I go to say that the media was so heavy on us within the first 2 weeks of this case. There were over 400 articles written about us, dissecting the lives of 14 and 15-year-old kids. There was no way in hell we was going to get a fair trial by the time we got to trial. New York City had already made up its mind. We were guilty. We were animals. We needed to be castrated. Donald Trump took out the $85,000 page, calling about bring back the death penalty for us, for 14 and 15-year-old kids.
Damn.
There was no way in hell who, you know what I'm saying? Like, and even if you read it and you found the truth, you was one voice out of many. You know what I'm saying? And the majority was that we were guilty. William Kunstler was Eustace's lawyer during his appeal, and William Kunstler said, Jesus Christ couldn't get you out of this one. This is how stacked up the deck was. The deck was so stacked against us. Ken Burns said we was the 5 most hated human beings on the planet Earth in 1989.
That's crazy. Yo, at 14, like, I don't know how y'all did it, man, because that's crazy. Like, and it seems like logic didn't matter anymore. Evidence didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Y'all were just black kids, and we wanted somebody to put on the table to slaughter. Y'all basically was terrorists. Y'all was treated like terrorists.
Yeah, and we became the poster children for mass incarceration because they were saying, oh, these kids are becoming more heartless. They starting to commit crimes in areas that they shouldn't be in. They don't care. And so that's when, you know, the sentencing started to change. The sentencing law started to change because, you know, back in the 80s, a juvenile can commit a murder, right? And the most he can get was 18 months. But that changed, you know, due to Willie Bosket when he committed his crimes. And then when we came along, it was like, look, see, they still crazy. So we got to become harsher. And that became that. And so we became, the city used us to gain the momentum to get our kids. You know what I'm saying? To lock people up and put them in, and build these billion-dollar budgets to jumpstart all these agencies.
Yeah.
When I tell you this is chess, brother, for real.
Yeah, so this was an orchestrated plan. They didn't really care. They had a bigger agenda in mind. Like, this was just like the little impetus to be like, you know what? Let's use this to. We don't care who gets hurt in the middle of this. We can worry about that down the line, because once we put these plans in place, it's going to be hell for them to take it back. Now, because after all this shit y'all went through, these laws are still in effect. And nobody said, you know what, we got to take these down and reverse all this because this wasn't true. It's like, well, it happened. Well, this is what it is now. So that's the craziest part of that.
On to the,
now that's Loco Jazz has a dope question right there. What do you think about that?
All right. And do you think there should be a bill against private jails and focus on rehabilitation? Yeah, I believe that. I believe that there should be something against private prisons, because when you have a private prison, they make the rules. You don't. And even in some of these contracts with these private prisons, they have to stay at a certain capacity or the state gets fined. What type of shit is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is crazy. And I think that prisons do need to focus more on rehabilitation and get away from punishment. So when they use our case, right, and they're saying, you know, these kids are becoming more harsh, then they go and they look at the system and they see, like, prison system is, because at the time it was about rehabilitation. There was a college program implemented. Guys were getting master's degrees and PhDs in prison. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of, yeah, they took it out after about 1995. They took it out because of, you know, being harder on criminals, being tough on crime. And so that was my point, that you know, it was about rehabilitation. But when you started to use these cases and say, nah, these dudes don't deserve rehabilitation, they deserve punishment. And that's how come the sentencing laws became more harsher, and they wound up pulling college because the general public started to have an outcry. And it was saying, I can send my kid to college, right? And it's gonna cost me $20,000 a semester. I can just send him to prison and he can get that shit for free. You know what I'm saying? And so that became an outcry amongst the citizens, you know. And when you have George Pataki, who comes into office and he says, I'm going to bring more prisons, I'm going to bring more jobs for upstate New York, based on slave labor of black and brown kids, you know, in New York City. This is slavery, man.
Yeah.
Fucking slavery.
Yeah. And then they mask it with words to make you feel like they're doing something positive.
Yeah. 100%. And then they know that recidivism rate is real, right? They know, like New York State can sit there and say, we're going to release 5,000 offenders, right? But they all got to be nonviolent. We're going to release 5,000 offenders. And then, you know, within 6 months to a year, because those are nonviolent crimes, they're going to come back. You know that. Right. So you can sit there and go, oh, yeah, we're going to release them like we're doing something great. But 6 months to a year, they'll be right back, and we'll put them right back into the budget.
Yeah. And we'll also create laws where if they don't commit a crime, just if they're affiliated with certain things or whatever, and they're on parole, we could try to violate them for whatever just to bring them back anyway. Like, shit
100%. 100%. It's hard once the system has a hand on you. It's hard to shake loose, man. It is.
Yeah, that's a good question. What do you think about how they prison?
It's the same thing. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we have to look at those who have mental issues, and we have to address that instead of just putting them in the system and putting them in an environment that's dangerous, that's more harmful, right? Again, if we're gonna say we want rehabilitation, then we got to look at those instances. You know what I'm saying? Some people have mental issues; they can't be general population. You can't. That's a mixture ready to blow. It doesn't look good, and we have to look at that stuff, and we have to be more sympathetic to it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Regardless of the crime, a person is dealing with a mental issue. We have to look at that. It's important, and a lot of times the system as a whole, you know, these people come back to our neighborhoods, man. How do you want them to come back? You want a person to come back from prison to be a smarter criminal, or you want him to come back and be rehabilitated and he's ready to be productive? Right. And that's the thing. You know, if the system wants to keep operating, then they don't want you to be productive. They want you to be a smarter criminal and get caught and come back and serve some more time. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to address these issues, because all these issues are a part of bringing down the numbers for the criminal justice system. And if you bring down the numbers, then you affect the budgets, unless it's because even private prisons. You know what I'm saying? But I talk about New York State because that's where I'm from. And it's all ran by you know what I'm saying, by the government, you know what I'm saying, New York State. So we have to look at all these issues, and then we have to find solutions to affect change within all these issues. So you see how complex this shit gets when it comes to fighting against a criminal justice system that's been operating for a long fucking time. You know what I'm saying? And the money is crazy long, and we just individuals with ideas trying to make shit happen.
Right.
How do you deal with becoming now a public figure? Everybody know you, everybody, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, just now that, you know, you're not just, you know, somebody who just, you know, went through something that people don't like. Everybody know your story. Your story is broadcasted and everything like that. Is it, you know, is it a good thing? Is it like, sometimes is it like too much? How do you handle that?
I mean, it is a good thing because it helps put me in circles with people who I'm supposed to rub shoulders with, so I can get my message across. Gotcha. But there's some parts to it that you be like, I don't want to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? The constant DMs and messages of people asking for money, and stuff like that. You know, stuff that you would just be like, wow, this is crazy. But But overall, for me, I use my popularity to get me indoors of people I need to be in front of, so that I could try to affect some type of change. You know, I'm in Atlanta now, and me and my wife just came from an event with Kasim Reed, right? Kasim Reed, he was the mayor, 2 terms, and now he's running again. And so we went down there to listen to him and see what he's talking about, and if we're gonna endorse, and I mean, if I have a hand in being by his side, then I'm gonna influence him, to do what's right, especially when it comes to our people. You know what I'm saying? And for me, my lane is criminal justice, and how we bring down the numbers, and how do we protect our kids.
Look at that question. Do you think that's
I mean, when you look at budgets, it hasn't. I mean, for individuals, the system probably has changed, because the system does, like now when you get on parole, if you're doing a certain amount of years, on good standing, then you can get time cuts and stuff like that. But as a whole, it's still locking up our people at an enormous rate, man. And I don't expect it to change, because it operates on budgets, right? You talking about, it employs how many people? And I always go back to New York. I always go back to New York and talk about New York, because they took a whole region, upstate New York, right? They call it North Country. They took a whole region and just flooded it with prisons. There's over 71 prisons.
75.
Yeah, there's like 71 prisons in New York State, scattered all above North Country. And yeah, because they operate anywhere from 65 to 70 to 75,000 inmates. You know what I'm saying? That's locked up, not on parole, not on probation, not in county jails. That's locked up in prison. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the problem, man. That's the problem. We have to bring down the numbers, so that them places start getting closed down, because they won't be occupied, and ultimately we start to take that money out of those towns who thrive off of prison labor. It's crazy, right? And come on, you heard the stories, Dannemora. Come on, you know what I'm saying? Like these are prisons that are put in areas where it was high public assistance, incest. They didn't know whether this town was going to survive, and then prisons come. And then some counties in New York State, they have 3 or 4 prisons. Right now, they got hubs. So you go to Clinton Hub, and you go into Clinton Correctional, and around it, surrounded in this hub, there's Franklin, there's Bear Hill, there's Lion Mountain. There's another one. There's forgetting the names. There's about 5 or 6 prisons within that hub, providing jobs. And then we talking jobs as far as correction officer, doctor, maintenance guy, all type of, you know what I mean? All type of jobs. And so these towns are thriving. And then, then they got visits that come into those towns and spend money. Right, whether you buying McDonald's or you staying at the hotel, and you spend money with them. So I mean, when a prison can go on the census of that town, of that county, to allocate for more funds, it's making money. Yeah, making money. So and then that's not even.
No, I'm sorry. So can't they, like, and with all these things, they building all these prisons. There's no way they could build community centers and other things that could provide jobs and help things and help that are actually positive for the people, to help uplift things.
It doesn't make sense. Look, it doesn't make sense to build none of that stuff. If I'm sitting here trying to swindle you out of $5, then I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure that you give it to me. I'm gonna take away everything around you. Gotcha. What am I gonna give you? Rehabilitation. I'm not gonna give you more jobs. I'm not gonna give you none of that shit. I'm gonna take all that shit away, because I need you to go to one place and one place only. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so they got their hands in our pockets so deep, man. That shit is touching our ankles, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it seems like their mindset of those who are creating these prisons, like they don't, like, because there are other things they could do to make money, probably more money than just building prisons. You know what I'm saying? But the mindset is, it's not even about building prisons or making money. It seems like it's just more about controlling and locking a certain people up and putting people in a mess up situation. Like we could do something. Like it's not
Yeah,
even about making
100%.
money. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, we could make money on top of it, but our bigger agenda is to lock people up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know it's somebody has to be on the bottom, and they chose us. They got to the top before we did, so they put us on the bottom, and they want us to stay there. They don't want to let us to move up, and they give you false hope because they'll say, "Oh yeah, you guys can make it. Look at all the celebrities and all the entertainers who make millions of dollars." But what about the regular Joe Schmo? He has to work and make $7 an hour. He can't survive. You can't even raise the shit to $15. And let's be real, how can anybody survive on $15 an hour, 40 hours a week? You know what I'm saying? Add that shit up. That shit is nothing. Then they tax the shit out of it. Then they want to tax you again. And then they expect you to survive and provide for a whole household. But it's a setup. It's a trap. You know what I'm saying? They pulling the rug from under your feet, and they do that shit all the time.
It'll make the best guy commit crimes to try to get right and
100%.
feed their family or whatever. It'll make you swipe, do some
100%.
scamming or something like, yo, listen, man, like,
Yeah.
nah,
Yeah.
it's tough.
And the crazy shit is I tell people, I say, and don't get it twisted. The system needs us to occupy them jail cells, right? And when they finish with us, they will go after white people. They'll go after any nationality. And this is the reason why you see Asians coming into prison. When you go to prison, there's a lot of white boys in prison. Because at the end of the day, it's about those budgets. We need you to put somebody in that seat. You know what I'm saying? And it gets to a point that they don't care who it is. You know what I'm saying? Like we know that they did it to the Indians, and when they killed off all the Indians, they went and got Africans. We know that this is how they do. So what you think when the system runs out and they can't get black and brown boys, who's next? They got to find somebody.
Facts.
They're going to get whoever. It becomes a dog eats dog because the system has to survive. Y'all need to pay attention to this shit too. Because if you driving somewhere, you do the wrong thing, you can end up just like us. Sitting in the same cell with us. Not even knowing how the hell you got there.
I see this question where the person asked you, do you think you guys getting the money is in this, I guess, received justice? Does the money equate to the justice that you guys got or whatever like
that? Hell, nowhere near it. Let me tell you something. The money was once you falsely convicted and you serve time, you're entitled to some type of funds because you wasn't able to work. You know what I'm saying? And you know, and the wrongs that were done to you need to be righted. You can't lock a dude up and he serves 20 years and then you find out he's innocent and you just put him on the street and say, all right, go fend for yourself. What type of shit? Who does that? You can't do that. The dude missed 20 years of his life. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, he needs to be rightfully compensated because he has to live. And even then, when we look at the compensation, some states don't even have it. Some states will give you a certain amount of money per year that you serve and tell you to get on. You can't survive with that shit. You know, people think, yo, y'all got millions of dollars. Life is great. No, it isn't. That shit causes more problems because at the end of the day, I had to learn how to be financial. I had to learn how to move with my finances. And that was through trial and error. Nobody, you know what I'm saying? Nobody sat me down and was like, yo, you need to do this. Nah, motherfuckers trying to get in your pocket.
Yep, that's a fact.
That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? So you got to learn fast and you got to learn quick, and you're going to make some mistakes in the process, but it is what it is. Just hope that those mistakes don't cost you all your bread, you know? So at the end of the day, they had to rightfully compensate us, but they didn't want to. You know what I'm saying? It took 11 years to get that shit happen, you know, and you know, in the beginning, they tried to give us some bullshit. You know, like, hey, we're going to settle this case. Don't worry about it. We know shit was wrong. And then they offered us some bogus ass money, thinking that we was dumb and we just going to take it. And so, and the blessing out of that was that because when we were exonerated, we filed in the court of claims, right? And court of claims only pays you based on how much time you serve in prison, not that you was a juvenile and shit was wrong and you were railroaded. So you got to go in there. You got to prove that. And so what happened was they offered us some bullshit ass money for the 5 of us that we were supposed to split with our families, which wasn't nothing. And they got upset when we filed on the federal level. And the reason why we filed on the federal level is because when you file with the feds are going to play the middleman. So they're going to tell the state they got to give up all documents. They got to give you everything. And for us, we wanted to understand what happened. Who made the decision to prosecute us and not do their fucking job? You know what I'm saying? And so that was a smart thing that we did when we filed on the federal level, because it opened up everything and we were able to see all the documents and we were able to pinpoint the actual person who made that decision to move on with this case and not reinvestigate.
Yeah. But was that actual person, can you say that actual person who did that, were they racist? Was it like on a real racist type of time?
Well, it was the DA. It was the prosecutor. Okay. There's a book by a man called Howard Levy, right? It's called The Blood That Cried. It's a DNA book. And he wrote this book, I think maybe around 92, something like that, right? But he worked in the DA's office with Elizabeth Lederer at the time. And so there's a chapter in there where he writes how she calls him up to the office and she tells him, I feel like I've been kicked in my stomach because none of this ever matches none of these boys. And so he's like, well, what are we going to do? And it's at that moment that she starts to formulate a plan, her and Linda Fairstein, on how to get a conviction. So we was able to pinpoint the exact moment that happened. And it's at that moment that she failed to do her job as a prosecutor, because she should have went back and reinvestigated instead of saying, how do we get this circle to fit into this square? And stuff it in there and say, look, it looks nice, and put a bow on it. And everybody bought that shit.
With kids, man. Like, that's the worst part. Like, y'all kids, like, how y'all adults playing those type of game with kids? Like, that's different.
Yeah, and then, you know,
sorry,
what was that?
I wanted to ask you, like, because I wanted to go a little left on this, and you know how I saw you too? I saw you online, and you know my brother King Bing, you know what I mean? Thugged Out Thursday, shout out to the Smoke Champs, you know, and I see you.
Shout out to King Bing.
Got a report. So how did you